Hello, welcome to episode 3 of Lockdown Blending. Last time we left off just about here. I have made a slight tweak. I literally was just doing it now before going live. I noticed that the fake reflective beam things at the front here, because we were hijacking the reflection ray, it was darkening the glass a little bit. So I made a slight adjustment to last week's setup of adding in a multiply on the reflection ray, setting it to 0.5, and then just doubling the value that I was using here. And that seems to work. It might also be an idea to instead just use an add shader and multiply the input of the color by the reflection ray. That might have the same sort of effect. I'd have to experiment, but the key thing is it's got rid of the darkness in the glass, which I like. But that's not what we're focusing on today. I just wanted just to have a good place to start. Anyway, I hope everyone's feeling healthy and happy. I hope all your families are doing well. I'm relatively healthy, if anyone cares. Aside from my usual this time of year hay fever, which has been kicking my butt a little bit, but beats coronavirus, so so that's a start. What we're going to be doing today is focusing on I didn't pick this reference image for the foam. I'm not saying it doesn't look good, it's just not the sort I wanted to do. This is the sort of foam you get on a really nice clean glass, like you've bought a pint in a really nice bar where they actually bother to properly clean their glasses and whatnot. Whereas I want the sort of pint for the sort of local that I go to, where they've got like a dishcloth hanging off their belt or whatnot that they'll use for the entire night, and the glasses aren't quite as clean as you might like, and you get a very different kind of build up there. You get like rings around where the drink's been sitting for a while, maybe several rings. If you've like drank a bit, left it, you'll get these rings. And I wanted to go for something a bit more like that rather than this kind of clean foam, but it's that sort of foam that we're going to be working on. We'll also be adding in the liquid, obviously, which is what I'm going to start with. And probably the modelled foam, the actual foam that sits on top of the liquid, if we've got time. Cool. So let's get started on that. It's actually really easy. We're just going to be... We just pull that in a little bit. Liquid comes up to just below the bulgy mid bit of the glass, and we've actually probably got a loop cut that will suffice nicely on that. Just for a second, I'm going to turn off my subsurf here, and I'll probably just grab this loop cut. Yeah, that looks groovy to me. So I want that, no, that, and way down there, I want those ones as well. I'm just going to jump to wireframe, make sure I haven't. Oh, I did. I cocked it up. Why? Oh, fine. Let's try that again. Wireframe, just got that bit. Excellent. So, now I've got that inner ring. Make sure it's the inner lot of faces, not the outer lot. Selected. Just hit Shift D and then P and separate by selection. And then we've got this this new object here, which I'm going to rename, you guessed it, pint glass liquid. And may as well go ahead and pound it to the pint glass. So if we move the pint glass around, the liquid will go with it. That kind of makes sense. Good habit to get into, I suppose. And then, in fact, for now, I'm just going to turn back on the subsurf, and we'll hide that, and in fact I'll hide everything except our liquid. Okay, so the first thing we'll notice when we go to face geometry is the blue faces are the ones that are going to be on the inside and the red on the outside, which is the opposite of what we want. So let's press F3 and just type in flip. No, I've got to be in edit mode, haven't I? Ugh. Flip normals. There we go. So now the normals are pointing in the right direction. And what we can do now is just grab this top ring of vertices, extrude, scale it in a little bit, and again, and then let's get it back into the center as it was. Nice. So we have our liquid, and if I turn on the subsurf modifier, which is present from where it came from, it will look like liquid, which is good. So I'm going to delete these materials because we don't need them, and I'm instead going to just call this beer, because that's what it's going to be. Now, one thing I do want to do is grab this outside edge, like so, and just grab it up a bit, just to replicate that kind of effect that you get with liquid, where the top of the liquid rises up the glass. Liquid doesn't sit completely flat in a glass. You've probably seen it before, but just in case you haven't, yeah, you need to kind of give it a little bit of lip as the liquid kind of leans its way up the glass, which is, I'm assuming, something funky to do with physics. Okay, let me bring back my pint glass for a second. I'm going to turn off this face orientation rubbish and jump to wireframe mode, and we'll start to see some problems. Good. You always see problems. What we want to make sure is our liquid's really close to the glass, but not in any way, shape or form touching it at any point. So let's first of all come up with a combined sort of distance. We want this sort of distance at every stage. So it's looking fine all along there. It's looking fine. Maybe a bit more actually. Looks fine, looks fine, looks fine, looks fine, looks fine. Actually, that's not bad, I don't think. No. You see, we've got some misbehaving going on here. So I might just have to grab in this loop and bring it in just a little bit. Now for this one, this could be tricky. We might need to add in an extra loop and bring it in. No, I don't like that idea. We'll probably have to tweak this later. What I will do though is I'll grab this last one, and because at the moment, if you notice, the actual line of the geometry is curving inwards just because of the subsurf. We want to kind of pull it back towards the glass. So I'm going to try a mean crease first of all. Nope, that's horrendous. What I'll do instead is I will add in that loop cut, and then we'll just shape it to our needs, like so. Just kind of, yeah. Tweaking will be required, as you're probably realizing at this point. Let's grab another one there, bring that in. Another one here, bring that in. This one, bring in anyway. Yeah, we'll definitely have to tweak this about as we get to it. But the goal is to try and get the glass to fit in the liquid, yeah? So we'll see how this looks in rendered mode. So let's bring everything back, go to shading, zoom in a little bit here, and yeah, it's not looking too bad. Obviously it's just a diffuse material at the moment, but I think that's going to work for us. I can't see any obvious signs of it cutting through the glass. Always a bonus. So let's add, learn how to talk first. Let's add in a glass shader and whack it into the surface. Not too shabby. We're going to lower the index of reflection, can't remember. It's refraction on this, isn't it? So we can get sort of closer to water. I don't think 1.1 would be quite right for beer, but that's a good place as any to start. For now, we'll leave the colour on white, and instead I'll get a volume. I think I'll just use a scatter. I know we've got the principled volume now, but if memory serves me, I had better luck just using the scatter node. And we'll set a kind of beery orange colour. and then whack up the density. No, maybe it was volume absorption. Oh, my memory at times. Yeah, getting there. So let's start to build in the beer colour. Let's go a bit more extreme and light with the orange. Cool. And then then this is when I start to bring in the glass colour as well, and slightly tint it in that direction. Don't want it to go too deep though. Not quite as there we go. Not too bad. And then we will use a scatter node a bit later, actually, if I get around to it, because I also did in kind of like a. If you look here on the reference, as the light hits the glass, it kind of creates this kind of smoky effect, which I thought was pretty cool. So I used the scatter node to create kind of clouds within the liquid. But that's a later stage type of thing. Still not happy with that color at all. It's a bit lame. That's what it is. I don't like it. It looks like someone's urinated in my pint glass. Oh well. Maybe someone did. That'll explain why these rings that we're going to be working on in a moment look so gross. Anyway, let's jump over to our pint glass and jump over to the inner material. Good. Oh, one thing I will need to do while I think of it. We've got to remember, because we're manipulating the light paths, that at every stage we want to be letting the shadow rays pass through, yeah? Because they're the ones that generate all our swanky stuff on the outer glass layer. And if we don't let the light pass through the liquid, we're losing some of that effect. So I'll grab that, add in a mix shader and a shadow ray and a transparent. I'm hoping this makes sense, because obviously it's spanning over a couple of episodes now. So I'll quickly just demonstrate why we've got to do that. So what I've just said here is the liquid is now allowed to pass, or shadow, sorry, allowed to pass through this liquid without generating a shadow. Yeah, shadow rays treat this liquid as transparent. We're also doing that on the inner faces of the glass. Yeah, shadow ray, mix shader, transparent. So then when we get to the outer layer of glass with all our swanky fake caustics and fake reflective light, those shadow rays are still there to then do the effect. If we're blocking them prior to it getting to this stage, it's got nothing to work with because we've blocked it all. Yeah, and we'll lose our cool fake caustics and our weird reflecting beam things and all of that. Will start to disappear if we don't let the light get to it, or let the shadow rays, I should say, get to it. And that's exactly what we've done. Okay, excuse me, I just need to pause for a moment to cough. The joys of hay fever, and of live recording, I guess. I can't just edit it out afterwards. Cool. So let's get to start on what I wanted to focus on today, because we're already 15 minutes in and I haven't actually really done much yet. So yeah, not ideal. We're going to be building up some rings. I don't really have a reference picture to work on, though I'd strongly recommend when you're doing it for the first time, at least, that you do. It's just I've done these several times, so I pretty much know what I'm doing, hopefully. Famous last words. So let's start with a gradient texture, okay? And we're going to build this up a line at a time, and it's going to get a bit crazy and it's going to look a bit strange, and there's nothing I can do about that, so just deal with it. Right, what way is this gradient going. For a start, it's going from side to side. I don't want that, so I need to. Is it minus 90? Yeah, no, maybe. No, that ain't right, is it? Come on, Bill. Minus 90 there. Ooh. Aha! That's what I wanted. So black at the bottom, white at the top. Okay. And now this allows us to. Let's just say we want the line. We'll create this the first line when the beer was nice and fresh and sitting in the pint, and you just had like one sip, and it's. I'm getting first, you know. Right, okay. Ooh. Anyone else hate working with these things sometimes? I certainly do. Though they are really powerful, aren't they? So we're just creating a line. Quite a tight line. Like so. But it's a little bit too perfect, isn't it? So what we're going to do is... in fact, I'm going to bring that down first. You'll see why later. Bring it to there for now. Cool. Yeah, it's a little too perfect. So we're going to use some vector manipulation using a noise texture. By the way, if anyone has got any questions on this as I'm going, feel free to ask away. But yeah, got ourselves a noise texture. This one I am going to use the object coordinates. Cool. Sorry, going a bit brain dead on that one. So I'm using a color mix here, but going to be feeding the vector into it, which is going to seem a little strange, and I get that. But all we want to do is basically introduce some noise to the vector. Yeah. So it's, even though it's a purple output going into a yellow and vice versa, there we're just adding noise to the individual channels. Yeah. So it's the color one that we want, and we dump that into the bottom, and then I can go over to this gradient map, and then as I start to mix it, you'll see magic. You see how that line's now wobbly? And if I increase the scale of the noise texture, the line becomes more wobbly. And yeah, really, really powerful. An easy technique to use. So I'm going to use, I think that level should work nice. Maybe a bit more strength. Maybe no detail on this one. Or lots of detail? No, no detail. A bit too strong. Still too strong. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll call that done. So that's our first line. Now I'm going to duplicate all of this. Okay, I'll try and keep them separated. And I'm going to just add them together. Okay. And now this one I can make slightly higher. So if I grab these, move them there, a bit higher than that actually. Thank you very much. Try and make it even thinner than the first one. Yep. Oh, that's too high. That's too high, moron. Maybe. Need to go kind of super tight with these ones, because we really want this to be a thin line. Cool. And then we're going to want to break this one up a little bit, so the little parts of it are showing. Okay, so we're going to need another noise texture. Again, set to object, object, and guess what? A color ramp, and increase the contrast considerably, up the noise, and definitely up the scale. Probably something like that, and make that look a bit more normal. There we go. And we just want to multiply that noise texture over our line. So now the line isn't perfect. See, the noise is cutting little bits out of it. And then add that to our other line, and we have that. And now, yeah, basically do the same again, because we want another line trailing underneath the thick one. Some labeling would definitely come in handy here. In fact, I created a node group because it's made it so much easier. And I was considering that for this, but yeah, I decided against it. It's hard enough following node craziness without starting to worry about node groups. Oh my god, that wasn't right. Why am I touching that? Bad. Oh no, that's right. Moron. Okay. So bring that to about there. Bring the white to there and the black to there. And we've kind of got this broken up line at the bottom as well. Cool. That's what we want, kinda. Though I'm going to change the scaling of the noise texture on this one. No. Maybe I'll increase the blacking out a little bit. Cool. Okay, now I'm going to bring in a texture. You might be asking yourself, by the way, why in God's earth are you not just painting this? Like, for example, this picture here. I don't know if you can see that particularly clearly. I can't zoom in on it from here. And that's a perfectly valid route to go down, to be honest. But I don't know. I kind of fancied making use of a lot of imperfection maps and being able to then blend them together easily and decide what I was doing. And yeah, I just decided to go down this way. So that's the reason. But you're not wrong. It's definitely definitely something you could do with painting if you don't fancy going down the node route. Okay, with this one I'm going to plug in the UV, but I'm going to adjust the Y scaling a wee smidge. Just to try and make this look like it's supposed to. Cool. And now I'll get both and upscaling a little. Yeah, something like that. Oh, I like it. I'm going to add in another add node there and drop this in there. No, drop that in there. Bastard. Ew. No, I want to add that to that. Thanks. Just so I can see where my lines are. Give me an idea of the scaling that I want for this. Yeah, not bad. Cool. Now I want another, you guessed it, another gradient texture. Blomp. Probably should have got my own texture coordinate over this bit just to keep them separate. In fact, that's just what I'll do. Cool. And this will be object. Oop, generated. I can fix that in a second. Convert a math node. And now we're just going to be using the gradient to limit where this texture can be displayed, and then blend it into our existing kind of funky setup. Yeah, cool. I think I need my other lines. Cool. So as we start to ease up on this gradient, yeah, you see what we're doing now? Kind of some of this. No, silly man. Make that go a little bit above. Make sure that the midway point is on that line. And we also want to put in a color ramp on this and just take away some of the increase the contrast, I suppose. Best way of putting it. So we're just getting the streaks and not the fuzziness in between. I want to bring that down a bit to match in with these lines. Yeah, we're getting somewhere. I want to thicken up that center line, which is anyone's guess which one that is. I think it's this one. Yeah, just thicken that up a little bit. Cool. Me likey. Okay, so look at this crazy setup. And that's only for one ring. I think there's, on my rendering I had like 3 of these. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, we want to create little holes. Because in the reference images I was looking at, there's lots of little holes. I'm assuming that's where there was a bubble that popped, so the beer didn't get a chance to form there. I've no idea. I'm not a bubbleologist. Although now I just said that, I think that's what I want to be. Let's go to Veroni. Veroni? Am I saying that right? I know I've not got a huge amount of viewers at the moment. A lot of you have been catching up afterwards, according to my stats. But those that are on, is that Veroni? Veroni. Anyway, we want the distance output of that, and I'll give it its own texture coordinate yet again, and use object and scale that bad boy out. Yeah, scale that bad boy out a lot. In fact, I don't need to because there's a scale there, you moron. Let's set this to something like 600 just for now, and grab ourselves, surprise surprise, a color ramp. And let's just kind of do this. Sweet. Yeah, we will definitely want up the scale on that. 1,200. Ludicrous amount. Okay. And then we'll just multiply our result here by these bubbles. And in theory, yeah, that looks terrible. Okay, let's play with these numbers until we get something that looks not terrible. 800 scale, but let's start to play with this. That shrinks the balls down a bit, and then we can tighten that in, and that's a bit more like it. Yeah, indeedy, that's more like it. A lot, in fact. Only thing I don't like, the texture that I brought in, it's too uniform all the way around. So let's jump to that part of this monstrosity, and we've got the gradient here, which is saying where it's to appear. So what I'll do is I'll instead multiply that by another noise texture, which I'll borrow from here, because it should be about set up right. Feed it the object. Yeah, I probably want to bring the scaling down to about 60. Multiply that by that, and then that breaks up that a bit, and then we can feed that into there. And then if we go back to the end of our chain, that starts to break up that line a bit. But what I will do is ease off on the black and the white, and slow the contrast. So some areas are sort of dimmer than others. Might take a minute to fiddle with that to get it how you want it. Maybe lower the detail a little bit. Yeah, not too bad. It'll do. Okay, so we have this crazy kind of ring effect now, and this monstrosity of a node structure. But what we need is this output is just a mask. All of this is just to create one mask to power a mix shader, because we're going to create a sort of fake foam material. Yeah. So let's call this ring or foam ring mask. So down here we now need to create our foam material. So I'm just going to start with a basic diffuse shader just to get us going, feed our current final glass shader into that, and then the diffuse shader into the bottom, and then connect that to the output, and then ooh, now it's a beer that you've discovered in a pub that's been boarded closed for decades, a post-corona lager. Yeah. Anyway, let's feed that into there. And yeah, we're just starting to see it come through. Now what you will need to do is multiply the end result. So be sure to clamp it. We don't want it to go over one. That wouldn't make any sense. So let's multiply by, I don't know, 5 to start off with, just so we can see what we're doing. And we're starting to get this ring of foam, yeah? You know, it's not perfect, especially on areas where there's not a huge amount of light sitting. It's kind of going dark, where you don't tend to see that. Regardless of what angle you look at foam, it's nice and bright. Excuse me. So to do that, I'm going to grab another mix shader, and I'm going, in fact I'm not, I tell a lie, I'm going to grab an add shader, breaking the laws of physics or something, and adding in a translucent shader, which lets light pass through and hit the back, and you can see that lights up our foam. If you think it's doing it too much, you can control the effect by changing the colour, but I actually think that looks pretty fine as it is. Yeah, funky. I don't think that looks too bad. I'd certainly do a little bit more work. Now I can see it on here. It's, I don't know, the bottom lines and the top lines could do with being less broken up and be more wiggly, and you get the idea. You're going to have to fiddle with it a lot, but that is the way of things. To create another ring, you would grab the whole thing and then duplicate it, and then combine the masks and just lower the values of the appropriate color ramps to bring it down. Or in my case, I did it via math. I had a shader set up and was just altering the coordinates via a combined kind of math node, which worked very well too. But you get the idea. Now, what we do, we've still got a very clean looking glass here. So one thing I do want to do with this mask is add in, I'm sure I had another texture that was useful for this. Where are your textures? Textures. Nope. Wasn't any of you. It might have been you. You know what? I'm gonna try you out and see how you do. That's already on linear. That's always good. Hideous. Oh, even more hideous. There we go, and scale it up. Yeah, I think you're going to work just fine, me laddo. Yes, you are. I'm trying to avoid it looking too tiled, but it's going to get quite broken up anyway. And then I'm going to add in a something or other, a noise texture, and blah blah on a U, and an object, and a color ramp, and massively up the scale, but not that massively, and bring in the, oh, just deleted it, oh well, bring in the contrast. You already know what I'm doing next, don't you? Come on, say it with me. I don't actually say it with me. I don't know what I was going to say, but yeah, we're going to use that to just break up the texture a little bit. We don't want it everywhere, and we don't want it to be too uniform. And what I'll also be doing is lowering this because we don't want it to be too strong. It's just a bit of extra effect to go with our effect. Yeah, nice use of language, Bill, you genius. Ugh. Okay, I need to nick this gradient texture again, so I'm going to Control C, Control V, because remember when you do that, it paste it outside of the frame, which is groovy. And I forgot the mapping node for it, which is less groovy. I'll just make that gibby. I couldn't be bothered trying to remember what the rotation was, and this will have it automatically. So lazy for the win. Feed the gradient into there, feed that into there, and click that, and it's working. Yay! And what we want to do with this one is, obviously we don't want the foam to be lower than our beer amount, yeah, because that's not how this shit works. So let me just, it's just below the kind of, what do you call it, the bulgy bit of the glass, isn't it? So about there. Should be fine. Awesome. So now we can multiply that by that. That should give us that kind of thing, I suppose. Let's get that to sort of trail off a bit there, and then we'll add this in to our final mask. Yeah, and now we can kind of balance the strength of it using this, because we want it to be noticeable, just not too noticeable. The scaling's definitely off. I'm not even sure that's going to look that good, to be honest. We should probably have introduced this before the bubbles actually. Yeah, we should have. Definitely should have, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm sounding like Eeyore. Is it Eeyore? The one from Winnie the Pooh? Got that kind of, okay, let's do some blendering. Not that anybody cares. Wow, what am I talking about? He's lost his mind. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's looking a bit more as intended. So let's lower this back down again. And now that kind of bubbly effects coming through. And I think that'll work pretty well for us. I'll have to grab this though and move it in here. God forbid anyone coming across that frame, which is the whole point of using a frame, is to highlight a specific area of nodes and make it nice and clear what they do. Yeah, it's well clear, isn't it? Yeah, I know exactly what that's doing. Cool. Okay, let's jump to that, and yeah, it's kind of coming through. Yeah. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, it worked in my final image pretty well. I had a couple of those. I think that kind of texture was probably up a little bit, and it'll kind of blended well together with the real modelled foam behind it. It didn't look too bad. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover for today. But we're already in. I try and keep a rough kind of hour going. So let's have a stab at the modelled foam. Like anything, going back to these nodes just for 1 second, like anything in Blender, the more time you give it and the more tweaking you do, the better the end result will look. This actually kind of looks like some sort of pattern for a stripper's thong, perhaps. I don't know. It doesn't. All the polka dots and stuff. Maybe I've just been seeing some weird strippers. I don't know. But yeah, it's not looking perfect. But yeah. Some tweaking will definitely get it there. Anyway, let's go create that foam. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my liquid. I'm going to Shift and H and hide everything else, and then I'm going to duplicate a lot of this stuff. Shift D, selection. So now we have this other kind of thing. Now this technique for the foam came directly from another tutorial on beer, which you've probably seen on Blender Guru. So for a more detailed look at exactly how to do this stage, just go look there. It's already a great tutorial, and I'm not really doing anything differently from that, except cocking everything up apparently. What the hell have you done, Bill? That's not how you do it, man. What the hell? Okay. Well, I was just making sure you're paying attention. That was completely intended. So congratulations, you weren't. Okay, so we've got our foam kind of model, which I'm just gonna blob into place. Yeah, kind of. I'm doing first of all is just giving it a foamy sort of shape, and has a geometry on it. It's not exactly even, is it? Just in the interest of curiosity, I'm going to go down. I'm going to try a slightly different route on the fly, which is probably a horrendous idea, but I'm feeling creative. So instead of sculpting, which is what the technique was in the Blender Goo tutorial, I'm going to see if I can do this procedurally. But I don't like the geometry, because as we start to try and displace that, that's going to look absolutely shite. So let's go to edit mode. What am I looking for? I'm looking for something, aren't I? It's new. It's remesh. Yeah. Oh, excuse the coughing. Okay, I'm going to use the quad remesher. No, I'm not, because it's not going to let me. Cut running edit mode. Cool. Okay. Refresh. Go. Done. Yeah. Has that worked? Define worked. No, that was awful. Okay, so let's undo that. Let's turn down the levels of subdivision a smidge, just enough to still keep the shape, and then we'll apply it. Still not liking the mesh though. Nope, that's hideous. Thanks for playing. Are these? It's weird. Did you notice the remesh kind of broke that up? That's kind of weird. Let's try a voxel remesh. Or not. Okay, I'll stick with the quad one, but let's up the face count to 25,000. Use mesh curvature. Sure. Why not? Smooth normals? Yeah, okay. I have no idea what those buttons just were, by the way. I know what you're thinking. God, this guy researches his topics well. Why hasn't he got more subscribers? Yeah, I know. I'm thinking it too. So I'm doing 25,000 was a tiny bit too high. Oh, come on, man. Why are you playing up? That should just work. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to stick with the original geometry and just try and make do. I don't like it though. I don't know why I went a bit Midlands there. Okay, right. Let's add on that subsurf again and a displacement modifier and a foam displace. Call it a cloud texture. I can't really see what size it is because of the insane scale. And let's lower the size of this. No, up the size of this maybe. It's probably just not enough to work with. Oh my god, man. What are you doing? Blender's always at its worst when you're trying to like demonstrate something, isn't it? Let's go really low. Whoa! Not that low. What the hell? It's doing it on purpose. Okay, now we're getting there, kind of. Again, excuse the coughing. It's out of my hands. Cool. Starting to get a sort of... No, definitely don't want the depth too high, because that really starts to show the bad sort of stretched out topology that we're using here. Okay, one thing I do want to do though is I don't want this to affect anything other than the uppy downiness of the displacement. Patent pending on that. Uppy downiness. Cool. So yeah, just make sure that's working. You see how that's just affecting the uppy downiness of the foam, which is a lot better. Oh, come on. It just makes this look a bit horrendous. It really does, doesn't it? Excuse me, barman. Someone seems to have taken a dump on my pint. Let's dissolve some edges here. I'm just trying to squish this a bit smaller. About completely destroying the shape of it. I'll probably get away with getting rid of that one. Yeah. And then I don't so much want to. I don't want to destroy that bottom shape, because that's going to follow the shape of the liquid. In theory, not with me doing that, it ain't. Okay, so another thing we're probably going to have to do then is create a vertex group. I've already got all the all the top vertices selected, so I'm assigning that to the group, and then I'm going to limit displacement to that group. So now when I jump into edit mode, you'll see it's just kind of, it looks like a squishy pizza or something, doesn't it? Okay, we can tweak that afterwards, or not, and just give up, which is probably my preferred option at this point. But yeah, you're starting to get the idea, I think. I hope. If not, it's my fault, obviously. No, it could be worse, couldn't it? It could be worse. I think once we whack the shader on, that's actually not going to look too bad. I could be wrong. Okay. Yeah, it looks fantastic, Bill. You are a genius. He said sarcastically. Let's jump back over to shading mode. Rename this object to be foam, because that's quite clearly what it is. I don't think I can use that term of quite clearly here, can I? Call it foam, because it's indeed foam. And then we'll change that to be a diffuse shader. Sweet. And we'll also add in that translucent kind of effect. Add shader, where are I? It's literally the first one. It's in alphabetical order, you moron. And a mix shader, and we're going to throw in some subsurface scattering, mainly because I like saying it. Cool. Yeah, that looks pretty horrible. In retrospect, I would stick with Blender Guru's method of sculpting, because it looked a hell of a lot better than that pitiful excuse of foam that you see before you now. But yeah, the material's nice and easy to set up. Might need a bit of tweaking. The translucency is probably too high there. We don't want all the light coming through. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to mute that for a second, so we're just getting the diffuse. Or not even getting the diffuse according to this. Oh, I think I've just zoomed in too much. No, that's dark as hell, isn't it? Weird. Maybe the subsurface scattering is not behaving. Let me just set all these to 1 and set this down to 0.1, because that should be letting some light through. But it ain't, is it? That looks horrible. Horrible, I tells you. Okay. Let's just turn that off anyway. Yeah, me no likey. Do I need to fake this yet again and let in some transparency? Let's have a look. It's very possible, actually, with all the weird light path manipulation we've been doing in this. Oh. No, it doesn't really help, does it? I'll mute that for now. I don't think that's... Or is it? No, that is helping. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I think you get the idea anyway. I think I covered mine up, because obviously I had another ring running just above it and more distortions. And the more I look at this, the more hideous that foam looks. I've got 8 minutes left before I draw the line at an hour on these streams, and I've got 8 minutes left, so I'm fixing that before I go, because that is horrendous. Horrendous. Unacceptable. That's looking a bit more like it. Just those little bubbles cutting out. The big thick line is definitely an issue, but at this stage I really can't remember which one is that line. I think it might be this one. It is that one. Good guess, Bill. I just want to thin that up a little tiny smidge. Yeah. Getting there. So yeah, with a lot of tweaking and a lot of playing around, you'll certainly be able to get some decent results with that technique. Alternatively, as I said, dump it into Paint or Photoshop or whatever your preferred doodly app is, and just doodle in some similar looking smudges, and yeah, save yourself this hideous node group. In fact, the after glass material in general is, I can't believe we started with a basic glass shader 2 episodes ago, but yeah, we did. So moving on from this, I haven't really got much more to show on this glass project. I know this result we've got in front of us here isn't quite what my end result is, but the majority of the techniques have been covered. The rest would just be tweaking. I don't think anyone wants to see me sit and tweak for oh, what's that? So I just noticed a comment. Are we fighting with caustics? I'm always fighting with caustics. I'm like, caustics, I'm getting up in your face, mate. Don't you look at me like that, caustics. Yeah, caustics are a pain. If you didn't catch the previous episode, I suggest to watch it, but I've used a similar technique to Gleb Alexandrov in faking the caustics. Anyway, yeah, so moving on from this, I'm going to be covering something new, something different. I'm not quite sure what yet. I've been playing with, in fact, I'll just quickly bring it up. I've been playing with quite a fun scene in my free time of a stairwell. Dun dun dun. I picked up this reference image from I think was it alamy.com, the photo sort of stock photo site, and I thought it was kind of funky. So I'm in the process of attempting to replicate that, and that might be relatively fun to have a look through. The result so far isn't amazing, but it's not horrific either. Just do a really quick. I've got the denoiser sorted, so I can get away with a really quick render, just so you can get a rough idea of where it's going. There's certainly some interesting modelling techniques in there. I don't know. I've not had to look for stuff like this before, and genuinely, I'd love some comments here. Are there still? Because when I was learning, there was some good tutorials on CG cookies, on Blender Guru, of using like arrays and mirroring and for building up really complicated sort of architectural scenes like this. using practically no effort whatsoever. Are there still relevant 2.8 tutorials for that? If so, then it probably wouldn't be worth doing a live stream on. But if you guys would think that would be interesting, then yeah, let me know. Because I could definitely share some stuff on this. But yeah, that's where I am with the scene so far. It looks like a dog's been dragging its butt down the stairs at the moment, but I'm still fiddling with the materials. The physical stairs, the marble stairs themselves, I finished the modelling on that. The railings are still very much just blocked out with a basic material on there. In fact, pretty much everything else is. It's just the stairs I was focusing on initially. But yeah, it's getting there. I think it will look quite funky once it gets good. Another comment. It'd be great some more arc viz. Yeah. Just in general, there is a lacking. I think part of the reason is one, it can be quite an in-depth topic, and two, it's just been done before, and I think a lot of content creators, myself, I'm guilty of it too. It's like we're like, not another living room, Even though there's since we learned how to do it, there's a whole new generation of Blender users, and none of the existing tutorials work with 2.8. I mean, take the Architecture Academy. That was what, 2.5 or something, maybe early 2.7s. I don't know, but it's well out of date now. You can't even buy it, and that was one of the last good sort of architecture courses you could get. But no one else wants to do one because we did it back then, But that doesn't help the newer users. So yeah, I fully agree. Art quizzes would definitely be good. But yeah, I'm going to stop talking rubbish now. I'll disappear. I'm starting to think, judging by the amount of viewers I had today, the Saturday might not be the best days for these. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's coronavirus and everything. Is there a difference really? What day I do it on? But I'm still going to attempt to keep it up daily. I didn't make it yesterday. The hay fever beat me, and I just wanted to crawl up in a ball, to be honest. Which might be the case tomorrow. In fact, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna give myself. I'm gonna say we'll continue this on Monday. So I'll continue the streaming on Monday. In the meantime, happy blendering. Write any comments you want, and I'll get back to you. So cool. Keep healthy, people.